Let's do question D. Limit x tends to 0 sine x over 1 minus x squared. When you plug in x equal to 0, you have sine 0 over 1 minus 0, which is 0 over 1. So this limit will be 0. So although this question they put in the L'Hopital rule lesson, but we do not need to use L'Hopital rule at all. So the answers for D is 0. Now let's do question E. Limit x to 0, 3x sine of 3x over 5x tangent 5x. Now let's plug in x equal to 0. We have 3 times 0, which is 0, sine 0, 0, 5 times 0, tangent 0. This one 0 over 0 type, and that's why we can use L'Hopital rule. So let's do that. You do the derivative of numerator and denominator. Limit x to 0, 3x sine 3x from 5x tangent 5x prime, which is limit x to 0, 3 minus sine u prime, so I write here sine of u prime cosine u. You think of that u as 3x, so 3x prime, which is 3 cosine 3x. You do similarly for the other one. 5 minus tangent u prime secant square. U here is 5x, so 5 secant square of 5x. Now we check the type of this limit we get. When you have x to 0, 3 minus 3 times cosine 0 equal to 1. 5 minus 5 times secant square. Secant is 1 over cosine square 0. So you see that 3 minus 3, 5 minus 5, which is 0 over 0 type. Again, you need to use L'Hopital rule. So let's do that. This one equal to this one prime over this one prime. Now 3 prime is 0. Limit x to 0. Minus 3 is just a number. Minus 3 there. Cosine u prime. U minus u prime sine of u. You think of that u as 3 times x. Minus 3 times minus 3 times sine 3x. And then you have 5 minus 5 here, and secant square prime. There are multiple ways to write down, so too easy to explain, I write down chain rules by writing the chains for this one. So think of that as, so let me finish this writing. Minus 5 times secant square of 5x prime. So let me just compute this one. So let's write down easy way. Secant square 5x. X you map to 5 times x. I call it u. And then u, I need to do secant of u, which is secant of 5x. I call it v. And then I map v to v squared, which is secant square of 5 times x. Now let's go to y. dy over dx. By change rule, this is dy over dv, dv over du, du over dx, dy over dv, which is dv square over dv, v square. Second term, dv over, second factor is dv over du, d over du of v equal to secant of u, secant of u. And the last one, du over dx, d over dx, u equal to 5 times x, which is 2 times v, secant prime, secant tangent, secant prime, secant times tangent, secant u, tangent u, and the last one's 5. So I hope you understand this step. The red one here go to here, this one go to this one, and this one go to here. Now we plug in v and u there. 2 times v, v equal to v here equal to secant of 5x, secant 5x. The second one, secant u, secant of 5x, u equal to 5x, tangent 5x, and multiplies 5. So we get everything here. Let's write 10 multiplies secant square 5x, tangent 5x. If I want to get rid of secant, I can write secant as 1 over cosine square 5x. Tangent I can also write as sine 5x over cosine 5x. So this one is 10 multiplies 1 divided by cosine cube 5x sine 5x. Now we are on good. We can plug in here. So the original limit equal to this. This one is limit x to 0, 9 multiplies sine 3x minus 5 multiplies on this. So this is secant square of 5x prime. That's what you get. Now look at this. We have 9 divided by 50. Just a number, take it out. Then you have limit sine 3x. This one divided by that, so I multiply the cosine cube 5x divided by sine 5x. Now you see that you can separate this limit x to 0 into two limits. Minus 9 over 50 limit sine 3x over sine 5x, x to 0, limit x to 0, cosine cube 5x. This one, cosine of 0, when you plug in x equal to 0, you get 1. So it really depends on this term. Minus 9, 50, these factors, you have x tends to 0, sine 0 over sine 0, 0 over 0. So type is 0 over 0. We do L'Hopital rules one more times for these factors. Limit x to 0 psi prime 3 times cosine 3x 5 times cosine 5x multiplies 1 minus 9 50 or 3 5 just a number, take it out. Limit, you plug in x equals 0, you have cosine 0 which is 1 over 1, so multiplies 1 which is minus 27 25 250. This is our limit.